Hello, everybody. It's been a hot minute. As always, I'm Cole, and I'm always joined by Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
You know, say what have you been up to? It's been a minute.
Uh, Not a whole lot, but got back onto trying to run Canlander asyncs.
Nice.
The March one not going too great right now. We'll see if I can get a win in there, but
Yeah. Uh-oh.
we're gonna try again next month. I have some
Uh-oh.
ideas about deck changes I need to make.
I gotcha. Yeah, I took down the last month's async, and then I'm pretty much locked for the March async top eight. So things are going well, but I don't want to I don't want to say too much more because today we are joined by a guest to talk about canlandex.com. It's kind of a newer site that a community member, also counselor Kelvin, made. Um, and so we were kind of like, well, let's discuss this, and who better to discuss it with than Kelvin himself or themselves. Kelvin, how are you doing?
How's it going? Doing good.
So, just because I know who you are, Ryan knows who you are, but for the people that don't know who are you? Like, just quick introduction. You can tell us as much as you want to, as little as you want to. Like, just introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Kelvin. I'm as of March of this year, I'm a counselor for Canadian Highlander, and I built Canlandex.
Yeah, nice. And I was gonna say, so how how long have you been playing Canlander for? Because you said you're a counselor, so that must mean you know a lot about Canlander, right? Or that you're absolutely like nobody else can beat you at Canlander, right? That's how you become a counselor, right?
Yeah, thankfully you don't have to defeat like a elite four of the current counselors to get in, but yeah, I started playing Canlander in 2019. So I I played at GP Portland at like a community run tournament that Wheeler put on, and after that, well, then COVID happened. But then after COVID, I started going to
Yeah.
like paper events in like the Pacific Northwest, and ended up meeting a lot of people from Seattle, Vancouver, and Victoria. Um, Many of them have ended up from Victoria were on the council. So like I met Robin Sorensen at one tournament, and I've met Trent, I've met a lot of people in the community. And yeah, um, I think I was my sort of appointment to the council probably was due to, let's not say nepotism, but I know a lot of the people on the council, and I've like met a lot of them in person just from like visiting Victoria or traveling to paper events. And like I'm like a decent player. I wouldn't say I'm like the best in the room, but in most rooms. But like I've top eighted like several events. Um, I guess for my one like large pedigrees that I could say is that I played Breach when it was 2 points in a tournament,
Oh my God.
and so I built Lotusless Breach for that event, and I made top four, losing to Robin Swartzen on Lotus Breach itself
I
in the
love it.
semis. And yeah, the Breach went to three right after that tournament, so I might have been partially responsible.
That's all good. Yeah, and I mean that's super cool. Like I don't really think it's like nepotism. I mean, like as somebody who, as somebody that pays like at least like pays somewhat attention to the format. Like I think that you're a level-headed individual that has a good grasp on what the format looks like and kind of like a good feel for what's gonna happen and like maybe like what needs to be addressed. So like I think that out of most people they could have chosen, like you're a pretty good pick. Like
Thank you for
I
that.
would give yourself a little bit more credit.
Yeah.
Um,
And the all important credential of passing the vibe check. So
yes,
True,
exactly.
true. Not being a serial killer, very important.
yeah,
That's something a serial killer would say though. So like I'm keeping an eye on you.
It's a good thing the Rockies are separating us.
Oh my god. Well, I was gonna say, so today we're talking about CanLandX.com. It's a site you made, Kelvin. We'll go more into it in a second. But normally before we get to the meat and potatoes of every episode, I mean, at least for me, we like to talk about tournaments that have been happening lately. But the year ends have kind of concluded. There's monthlies happening. There's some webcam tournaments like the Joking Opens happening. But I mean, I was kind of looking through and I was like, I wasn't seeing anything super huge happening. I don't know if y'all know of any other tournaments or if there's any, just local scenes you want to shout out. Like, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen very many large events either pop up. Maybe this is the call that there's a big gap there for the spring. If you can organize a big event in the next month or so, and
Yeah, I think coming off of a lot of year ends, we're sort of maybe just like winding down a little bit, and it seems like the joking events are probably the largest that sort of regularly occur on like a monthly basis. But yeah, I'm interested to see what the top eight would look like at the next large event, given that we just had a points update.
Yeah,
an impactful one at that.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't just one or two pointings. It kind of hit everything across the board, and things are changing.
Anecdotally, from the one event I've played, one sort of semi-competitive, not just pickup games I played, I'm noticing a big shift in what people are actually playing.
Yeah,
That's interesting to hear.
yeah. I mean, I was playing Jeskai almost exclusively for a while, and I mean, like, obviously, I kind of got a little bit bored, and I was like, I just want to play from the catacombs, and I want to play Golgari because that's the deck that I always go back to and I always put together, and it's been doing fairly well. Like, but yeah, I'm noticing that people are kind of looking at more decks in a different light and really, willing to, give more decks a shot.
I should more say it's not even necessarily people are playing different decks entirely, but the way those decks have been built are different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say one of the big goals of the last points change was to shake up like dominant point spreads. So I think combined with the mystical change in January, we were really hoping that blues like control or mid-range spreads would get shaken up a bit and see if we can break up some of like Recall's dominance. And I think it's been fairly successful.
Yeah. I think it did what it was supposed to do. Anyways, though, just so that we don't, because I get off track really easily, I get really distracted really easily. To make sure that we don't do that, for right now, we've mentioned a couple times, and Kelvin, what's CanLandX? Why did you make it? What, give us your thoughts on that.
So CanLandX is meant to be a one-stop shop for Canadian Highlander resources. So you have these like pages for each deck, kind of like Wikipedia articles or like MTG Goldfish. I have card play rate data that's a bit like EDH Rec, and like a list of local game stores hosting paper events. And so the idea was that existing Magic websites didn't really have much support for Calendar, where sites like MTG Goldfish, for example, it's kind of like a ancillary like feature on their website that's like shoved away in their like other formats tab, and same with like other sites like MTG Top 8 and such. So I think for people interested in getting into Calendar, it was kind of difficult to find resources such as like deck lists, metagame information, and such. And to the community's credit, a lot of people step forward to build and assemble these like gathered data sites. And so, like the Winners Archive on Moxfield, for example, or the Google Sheets that's listing all the game stores running paper events. And like, kudos to these people, like they're like the lifeline of the community. But I would still say it's still kind of inconvenient for like a new player to like find all of these resources, because like I think if you aren't super active on Discord, I don't think it would be difficult to know about them, that they existed or where to find them. And so yeah, one of my goals in building this website was to sort of gather all these resources and put them on a website that is easy to search through and is accessible on like PC or mobile.
I got that. Okay. I was say, Ryan, I just want to make sure I'm not pushing you out. Ryan, what are your thoughts on some of this stuff?
Oh no, I have some technical questions, but they don't fit in this broad overview category.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say that I think it's a great tool. I mean, I don't use it as much. Like I'm obviously, but that's like not because I don't want to. It's mainly like I'm busy with other stuff right now, so I don't have as much time to look at stuff. And also, I'm more of an entrenched player, but like you're just looking at it, it's like for we'll also include the link to it in the description. But yeah, like you go to canlinux.com, you can search decks. There's tabs so you can look at decks, events, cards, info about the site. It's like points lists, recommendations. There's an about, and yeah, like it just really talks about just the decks and even has a little blurb for every single one. It even has recent deck lists. So it's just like an insane like collection of like information that I think that's great for really any new player or old player alike if they need to. It's like you said, it's like MTG Goldfish kind of.
Yeah, and probably a little bit more targeted towards newer players because I think for like more entrenched players probably are aware of the locations where the information is sort of derived from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but, that's still really like a really necessary like resource because I think that at least at least how I look at things, it's like if you have a really good base knowledge of stuff of like whatever you're doing, as you get more and more entrenched, you can refer back to that like those stepping stones, and it helps either reinforce or correct any either reinforces your knowledge or corrects any misunderstandings. And I think that's just like a really important tool to have in general. Um, let's see, but yeah, I was going to say you targeted it for new players, and so I guess in that same vein, because we do mainly want to focus about tournament preparation. Was that a consideration, or what? I guess like what is the ideal way that you would use it if you're gonna use it for your next tournament?
Yeah, so I think we can kind of split it up into between maybe newer competitive players who are getting into Canlander versus experienced Canlander tournament players. So I'd say for people who are maybe experienced in tournament Magic but haven't played much Canlander, probably metagame information is the thing that it would be most interested in. And so the page I have that lists out all the decks that you can search from also lists like a count or like a meta percentage. And this page gives you the default sorting on this page gives like I think the top like 12 to 15 decks here are a fairly accurate representation of what I would think the top meta for Canada tournaments would be like.
Yeah.
So we see like Time Vault is at the top currently, followed closely by Jeskai. Rakdos is a deck that's kind of interesting because I don't play against it very often in the places I play, but it seems to consistently do well in other metagames.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for a newer competitive player, this will sort of help get them an idea of like what the broad top level meta would look like. And then looking into the individual like deck articles, they can see example deck lists just to get a sense of how these decks are constructed, what are the sort of common point spreads people are playing. And yeah, for experienced players, I think there's maybe some interesting trends you can observe from just looking at some of these top decks. For example, you'll notice that like there's several combo decks, and almost every other deck that's considered like a fair deck has some sort of game into combo, with maybe the exception of like Naya Monsters in this list.
Yeah.
It's probably quite no. There's some cards I would say like Blood Moon or Opposition Agent that it's worth noting which decks play them and how frequently they're played, so that if you ever get paired into them in an event, they can inform how you mulligan, and give you a better sense of like, okay, so if you were on Time Vault, maybe you sequence your fetch to fetch your basic island, and you bias towards keeping hands with more mana rocks, for example. Little things like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess I have a question with how you calculate meta share. Given that this is more of a, I'd assume, recently aggregated data set, like recently being within the past 2 years, how does the database deal with decks that are, say, haven't like deck lists that were registered in an event like 2-3 years ago? Are those still included in like a meta percent, or at like what point would decks drop off of being
Yeah, so the
included, if ever?
the cutoff was January 1st, 2025.
Hmm.
So the reason I did that was one, there was a points update in the first week of January, and so it felt like a good time to start the data gathering from that point. And also because it was somewhat recent to the release of Modern Horizons 3, where um, I felt that that set was probably the most impactful set to have ever been released in terms of changing how decks are constructed in our format.
Yeah.
And it felt like including data prior to that set's release wouldn't necessarily be very helpful because I feel like the general metadata, just the general power level of the decks across the board just increased so much after that. So
Yeah.
I figured 2025 was a good starting point to start gathering data.
Yeah, I
And
guess
so,
then.
and so the counts you'll see are, yes, the total number of times these decks entered the Winner's Archive starting from January 1st, 2025.
Okay, so this is winning decks, not necessarily all decks that have ever been played, just the decks that we
Yes, this is
reliably have
only,
data for.
yes, the only decks that make a top cut that are
Yeah.
submitted to the archive.
Okay.
And part of that is due to the like difficulty of gathering deck lists for like every like F&M level
Yeah,
event.
you can't deck enter hundreds of decks every single week, especially if some FNMs don't report every single entry.
Yeah.
Like you're lucky if you get like top 2 decks out of some FNMs.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I guess would you ever consider in the future if there was another big points update, or even like the current points update? At what point would you consider moving that cutoff forward? Or is there no plans to do that right now?
I probably wouldn't change the cutoff, but I think to I think a different adding a feature onto the website that would allow users to define date ranges
Hmm.
to look at the data between a set time period would probably be interesting to people, so that they can set cutoffs such as like see all um, data at post this points update, for example.
Yeah.
That's an idea I had for a future feature.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So would all of these decks, when these decks get data entered, are these being entered manually via like it's relying on the tags from Winner's Archive to figure out which category to put them in, or is it manual entry, or is there some smarter sorting done behind the scenes that doesn't require such
Um,
manual
it's
intervention?
a fairly simple system where I have like a file that has a bunch of deck names, and then
Hmm.
they'll map to one of these like broader categories, and it's like somewhat arbitrary. So, but yeah, so like I'll have like a list of like dictionary words where it's like Boros Extant taxes and Boros taxes and
Hmm.
Boros DNT will all map to the data entity that is Boros Extant taxes on my end.
Gotcha. So it
And
sort of
so and like
relies on the data entries to have coherent naming.
yeah, and then if there's a new key or name that I haven't seen before or used before, I'll just manually add it in.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Dang.
the somewhat degree of that is like subjective in terms of like there are some decks that are like kind of blur the line where it's like, is it mid range? Is it control? Is it
Yeah,
Oftentimes, yeah.
I noticed Rakdos aggro and Rakdos mid range were two different decks in the archetype breakdown.
Yeah,
And
and so
those two are something I'm more familiar with, and it gets really blurry down the middle there.
yeah, for sure. These sort of like archetypal names of like mid-range and aggro are like hard cuts, but in reality, it's more of a spectrum
Hmm.
for some decks.
Yeah.
And yeah, Rakdos certainly. I guess like most variants of it lean towards aggro, but occasionally you'll have builds that won't go as deep into some of the more aggressive cards. So
Yeah.
it's tricky to draw the line there, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at it and I'm like, I went down a ways. Just like completely honest. There's like Golgari lands, green black mold, Golgari mid range. I see like a lot of different flavors of Jund, which I'm kind of surprised that there's more than one Jund deck. I'm gonna be really honest. Um, I saw Jeskai control aggro and mid range. Um, okay, sorry, I'm just talking out loud at this point.
Yeah,
But
and at the end of the day, um, like whether or not to create a new entry sort of depends on like if this deck is significantly structurally different from existing variants to make it worth creating a new entry for it. But also sometimes it's to the sort of preference of like the author or the person who got the deck onto the archive, because if they sort of strongly feel that it's distinct or through like the way they play it and the way they think about matchups, then sure, maybe that's true.
mm,
But in some cases, I feel like all variants of like Abzan mid range are kind of the same, where it's like you're
I
playing
get
like a
that.
slow, dirtily deck that's like kind of hateful and almost certainly uses the graveyard, and like you can call it Rexer, you can call it Nightmare, but they're kind of all the same.
Yeah, and they could be 30
I get
cards different from each other and still be mostly the same, too, I think.
Yeah,
Like,
but then like you'll have things like Jeskai where it's like the recall spreads versus like triple Mox, Felia, Blink, like Aang builds versus like Time Walk and stuff. Like they all feel like quite different. And even if they do share the core like 40, 50 cards.
hmm Yeah, like this is like sorry, I'm like I'm paying attention. However, this is my issues. I'm like looking at stuff now. I'm like, oh, this is pretty neat. Like I forgot this deck exists. Like I'm looking at black mold. Like I'm like I don't know why I'm looking at this. I'm just like, oh, this is pretty neat. And, it's just there. Like again, like that's speaking to the fact that it's a good resource if like I'm just like absentmindedly scrolling it and I'm like, oh god, this is an issue. Um, like I can see myself getting lost in this website for a while, even though I'm a more entrenched Canlander player. Um,
I think that's one of the
like,
cool parts of the format though, is just how much variety there is in decks that can win.
yeah, the most striking thing that even the top two decks don't break 5%.
well, is that just because of? Well,
It's
I
because
mean,
of subcategories a little bit. Jeskai gets separated out from Jeskai Black or
hmm,
Esper Red. They get separated from each other. Rakdos get separated into two. But even then, nothing breaks 10.
yeah,
Even if you start combining categories, I don't think any deck category breaks like 8% total meta.
hmm,
Yeah, and I imagine like if we ever got Canlander queues on Midco, for example, we'd probably see a lot more homogenization. But
Hmm.
yeah,
yeah, like how things are with different paper metagames being spread out and people largely playing what they like. Um, yeah, we see quite a diverse spread, which is I think like yeah one of the main draws of the format.
yeah,
Yeah, you I guess this is more of a question on. I know you mentioned thinking about doing a recency filter to decks. If that got ported over to like the most played cards tab, um, that could be really interesting to see what people are playing out of like the new sets that come out. Because a lot of the newer cards can get hidden beneath like recents, like just not having enough volume to show up in most played.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know if you guys
it's
saw.
always so hard for me to figure out like is this card actually good or not out of some new sets without testing it yourself.
Yeah, and I saw. I don't know if you have seen, but someone created a new website called Canland Data that
Oh yeah.
is essentially doing what you're asking.
Oh, okay.
I'll post it in the chat for this, but yeah, they've essentially done something similar to me, where we're both sort of aggregating data across the Winner's Archive, but in this case, they've gone a step further to like associate card data with timestamps to plot play rate over time. I do have access to that data, but I didn't. I chose not to store all the timestamps with all the deck list data, just because it's a lot of data to process. But
Yeah, I can imagine it would add a considerable size to an XML.
Yeah, but I do understand that, like, yeah, people would be quite interested in seeing that data broken over time. And I think especially due to the way our format works with the points list, like, it would probably be very useful to know, for example, like Tamio, its play rate after being pointed versus before.
Yeah, because I was looking at like the cards and I was like, that's like one of the first things I saw. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how how much the player has dipped after the pointing of it. Yeah, it looks like
Yeah.
Tamio is even the first pointed card that comes up after like when you look at the table on page 4. God, this is an issue. I need to this is gonna distract me way too much. But that's a problem for future me. Okay. I was gonna say that just because I don't want to like make us stray too far from the path, I'm gonna kind of push us back onto the topic of Canland X specifically. So we've been talking a lot of what the site has to offer, what kind of data we can get from it, but what about the site do you want people to have a good grasp of so it can be used like in the most effective way that you perceive it as? Because like obviously you have a lot of data here, but like if we can't use it, or like maybe if we're not using it as intended, like sometimes it either gets misused or it's the perceived effectiveness or efficacy goes down. Like really, what do you hope people would have a good grasp of by using this, or what do you want people to have a good grasp of to use it? It's kind of a bit of a long question, but
no, yeah, it's. I think. Let's see. I don't think there's too much in the way of like misusing the site, other than sort of understanding that where our data comes from, and that we're logging data from a winner's meta, and so the data shows us what has worked, but it doesn't show us what could work.
Yeah.
And so just because something doesn't show up prominently on the site doesn't mean it's not viable. But on the inverse of that, I would say is that I think we can be fairly confident that the decks that are doing well are like proven enough with the sample that we have access to, and for relative to the size of our data, like I think we could be fairly confident that like the decks near the top are good. I think maybe there are some truths that are not obvious maybe from this data, where I would say the meta share is sort of like a representation of the power of the decks or how successful the decks are multiplied by how popular they are. And so that means decks that are very good that are less popular would show up lower on the lists. And I know people often bring up combo as in that light. Although I would say like Flash Hulk is played a lot more than I thought it would be because I would have figured that to be a fairly popular deck. But I would say like Lotus Breach is, for example, is like a deck that it's sitting at like 1% meta share, and that deck is cracked.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was almost expecting Flash Hulk to be a bit more represented because I mean it's showing up about it as much as I would expect, given that it's a winners data set, but in a it just Flash Hulk as a deck I don't think gets played nearly enough for how good it is as well. There is
I agree with that.
There's a large number of people who just are not interested.
Yeah, no, like I remember I tried playing Flash Hulk and I was like, I'm so bored of this deck. I played it for like 5 or 6 sets. It's like I just can't do this personally. Like it's nothing. I don't think the deck is bad. I'm just like, it's kind of like the same thing over and over again, which is a good quality for a deck to have. But I was like, I can't really play this deck and get the good testing in that I need if I'm just sitting there like, oh, that's like this is fine. Like, you know, if it's not any interest to me, then it's not. I'm not going to do well with it.
Yeah, I've actually played Flash Hulk quite a bit, and I was maybe partially responsible for Flash going from 5 back to 7 because I went to like a paper event in Tacoma where I killed someone on the stack. I killed a Blue Moon player on the stack while like 2 counselors were standing behind me. But yeah, like I understand the sort of grievances people have with the deck in saying that it's a little bit boring to play, and I don't necessarily disagree. But like my thoughts on that is that like I think competitive like Canlander or Magic in general is pretty fun, and like trying to win introduces a lot of like stress and emphasis on like tight plays and sequencing. So when I play the deck, like I'm more just captured by the challenge of trying to win, and like there's fun that comes from that, not necessarily from like the play patterns the deck generates, but in like the push and pull of like trying to win and having your opponent trying not to die.
Oh yeah,
and I mean,
I feel that.
Yeah, and I mean, like if you can like play the deck like well, like if the deck is good enough that you can just play it and like you don't have to overexert your brain, like that's a real like competitive advantage also. And like you said, like you know, just playing it well and just like you know, just like trying to like win, like I think that's also really interesting. I think that like the grievances, like, and I think that like with that being said, like the grievances aren't at all about you know the deck being bad. It's just like I think it's for me, it's like I know that the play patterns are something that I really gravitate towards when I'm choosing a deck, but I think that's maybe I'm just like too smooth brained, maybe actually. But like yeah, like the play patterns, like what makes a dopamine hit, right? And maybe that's just maybe this is just showing that I've been hit by too much brain rot from you know all those years of watching Vines in high school, but I'm just kind of rambling.
Yeah, I mean there is one more point I would like to mention about site features that I thought was potentially useful for us, Cole, is a lot of events are great with proxies.
Yes.
A lot of stores do have 10 proxy limit for events though, understandably. Some stores are a little bit apprehensive about going full proxy. And there is a final bit to this site where you can import a deck collection, figure out which decks you're close to being able to complete.
Yep.
Which, for someone like myself who does not have the most extensive collection, can at least help me be able to play something without needing to borrow too many cards at some of these 10 proxy events. And I know the issues I've had in the past about trying to get to like a 10 proxy event and I'm missing like 40 cards. From any playable deck.
Yeah, because I remember there was one win a duel event we went to, and you were like, "I need 35 cards," and I was like, "Holy crap!" And I was like, "I have a lot of this."
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think that's an amazing feature. Also, I totally glossed over that. Um, like like we're a format where we get to play power. Like,
Yeah.
and 99% of people are gonna be proxying those cards, right? Like,
Hmm.
so it's like if you want to be competitive, you either have to and concede the fact that you will not get to play those decks with powered points,
Well, I mean, 10
or
proxy limit is a thing, so that helps
I
out a
know,
lot, but
yeah, but like
knowing what's
there's
within
like not,
striking distance.
yeah, no, exactly. But there's like some places that don't do proxies still, which like it's whatever. It's the store's choice, right? But like unfortunately, sometimes you've got to be like you got to know what you can play and what you can't play.
Hmm.
Which that was a good call out. I did not even see that.
Yeah, it's on the last underneath information.
Mhm.
There's a recommendations box,
Yep.
and you can just import a deck collection or even a set of cards in basically any deck format that you have.
Oh no.
Any collection file, deck file, just throw them all in a Mox field list and see where it goes.
No, no, that's
Um,
dangerous.
yeah, and
I
throw a Mox field collection if you have one of those in there. And it can.
I don't need to be tempted by any more decks. Okay, I'm trying to slim down. Darn it, I've gotten down to like 2 decks, and I'm not going down this rabbit hole again.
Yeah, it was just something that I saw there that was a potential shout out. I mean, Kelvin, is there any other cool features we haven't talked about you want to shout out?
Um, Actually, no, this was the big one that I was going to bring up if no one else did, just because I spent like 2 weeks building this and it was a lot of work.
Yeah, I can
Oh, that's
imagine you have to like cross reference, and this is not necessarily the point for technical implementation, but I'm curious exactly how that works behind the scenes.
Uh, yeah, yeah. So the big thing was that like I didn't want to like actually upload people's collection files to my server, so
Hmm.
it's all stored like locally in people's browsers. And yeah, so it turns out like the modern web browser is this like Frankenstein monster of like features that are available, and one of them is you can just store like structured data like a database locally. So that's I'm storing people's collection files there, and it pulls them up when you refresh the page. And then from there, it's mostly just sort of like cross-referencing because I have like all the deck lists for like the example
Yeah,
decks for the each of the decks, and then it's fairly easy to just like compare them against everything. And yeah, figured it was a kind of an interesting feature.
yeah. No, my
Also,
CS background got turning and wondering how it was done. If it was done through like some sort of like vector of cards or something like that, and like comparing vector like degrees and however dimensional space that
it's a
is.
lot of hash tables, just
A lot of
lots of
hash
hash
oh my
tables.
tables.
god.
A lot of hash
Yeah.
tables.
Oh my gosh. I
Okay.
know nothing about this, and I'm just like you guys can have a good conversation. I'm betting, yeah.
No, I don't think this is the place for the CS technical implementation of how these things work, but I needed to
Yeah, you
sate my own
freaking
curiosity.
nerds.
Uh,
That's more than fair enough.
yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, so we talked about that, and then we kind of went over the big things. I'm gonna kind of jump around a little bit, but Kevin, you were talking about like how you wanted to discuss the recommendations and like the collection thing to see what decks we can build, but kind of going along with that, like what about the site do you want to humble brag about? Like what do you want to add to it next so it keeps getting better? Because like I mean, there's like a lot of potential here, and like you've done a lot with it already. Like, is there anything that you want to like call out specifically? They're like, this is a really cool feature that like I love, or like, what do you want to keep doing? Like, what do you want to do more with it?
Uh, I think maybe not a specific feature in general, but like every page on this site, I had to design the UI for both
Oh my
um,
god.
desktop and mobile, and I think
Oh no.
That was a. It was like a lot of work to do it, but I'm kind of glad I did because like I think about half of the users who visit the site are use like smartphones, and so that's been like an interesting challenge to like have like good like responsive designs that people can use because I imagine a lot of people are like browsing the site on when they're at work on the weekdays.
Oh my
But
gosh.
No
yeah,
comment.
um, in terms of like quality of life stuff, I tried to add like example deck lists in a lot of places under like point spreads or like
Mm,
cards and for in like the deck pages so that if a lot of people I think have like the used case of like they're interested in like one card in particular and like they'll search up like oh I really love like spreading roots and I want to see all the decks I can build out of this card. So having like a example deck list that they can pull up for every any card that is listed under a deck can help people get them to like the deck lists that they wanted to like reference.
mhm.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. There's like little like the more challenging things are like the more technical, like the filters that I totally did not steal from Google Flights. Stuff like that are like there's a lot of like little details in the implementation that were quite tricky.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna call you out on using anything because I don't know how to make any of this stuff, and like this is like looking at this, I just kind of sat there. I was like, I don't know how long this took you. I'm like, this is impressive to me, at least just making it from the ground up.
It took a very long time.
Okay, well, I was gonna say, Ryan, do you have anything else you want to ask him about, or I mean, because really, I was gonna ask how can we help Kelvin improving the site, but do you got anything else, Ryan?
Not really. Only that I think to stress test those layouts, I think I need to pull out a like
Oh my gosh.
3 to 4 CRT monitor from like 1990s. Really stress test the formatting.
Y'all can do that whenever you want to. I don't know what the heck you're talking about.
But yeah,
Uh,
I guess in terms of sort of improving the site, like any and all feedback is very welcome. Despite all the time I spent building it, like weird bugs just get missed all the time when it comes to like
Mhm.
building these sites. So, like yeah, like any feedback and messages and are all very welcome. And yeah, in terms of just, I would love it if people just you just told your friends, just spread the word about the site, make me feel better about all the time I spent building it.
What if I don't have friends? What do I do then?
You know, even enemies, that's fine too. They all look the same from my end.
That's fair enough. Okay, let's see here. Well, I was gonna say because it sounds like really just kind of doing a TLDR for the entirety of it. Like, um, Kelvin, do you want to just do a quick TLDR? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, we kind of went off tangent a little bit, and I'm bad at summarizing stuff sometimes. So if you just got like a TLDR that if the listener decides to be that guy and skips through the entire conversation we just had and they listen to the last 5 minutes of it, what do you want them to know about the site?
Um, you know, just think of it as a like empty goldfish type site that's trying to be everything and everything you need to know to just to get started with Canlander. So figure out what decks are people playing, what do decks look like, where can you play events, that sort of stuff.
Okay, gotcha. Brian, you got anything else to add to that? Because I think that was pretty good.
that sounds perfect to me.
Okay, so Brian, I'll let you take the question because
Yeah,
you came up with this.
yeah.
Calvin, at the end of every episode, we always have the question we ask. It can be silly. It can be about a misplay. It can be about our thoughts on the topic that we don't really want to do an entire episode on. Maybe, like I think a while ago we did a question over like the most embarrassing misplay we've done, or a misplay that we found in retrospect, something like that.
I have a lot of those.
We should do another
Oh, yeah.
punts next time. We should do another question
Oh my
about
gosh.
punts. I mean, there's always an infinite amount of punts you can talk about.
I mean, for me, it's just any game I play. You just watch a game I play, and there'll be some punts in there. That's all there is to it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no. For this week, it's given that this is about a deck list database, are there any like newer decks or just decks that have been made more viable by recent point changes that you're looking forward to brewing at some point in the future or have brewed recently?
So, I think with the recent changes, like I think Nadu is due for a big comeback because that deck was like pretty good before, but playing against it recently as like on like other combo control decks, like boy, it kind of sucks to play against Nadu when you're playing something like Scape Shift or Time Vault because they're just like a combo that's faster to assemble than you, and they have a bunch of these like annoying growth threats like Scythe Cub that you can't really ignore.
Yeah.
And yeah, that deck's pretty good.
Well,
I think like there's some Thoracle builds that are pretty interesting. The like self-lit breakfast variants I think are really underexplored and have a lot of potential.
I forgot Thoracle went down.
I don't think they're still like great yet, but they're definitely viable. And yeah, I think they're better than they look.
For
yeah.
If things become more hospitable to them in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
was good.
Honestly, for me, it's been Jund. I think that like there's like the old four color blood decks that like just run out fast mana and 2-drops, and I think that running some really aggressive Jund lists have a lot of legs to them with the recent Minsk and Boo down to 1 or down to 0.
That's true.
It gives a real reason for Rakdos, which is already a popular deck, to start splashing green and picking up just some big green creatures and potentially dropping the moons. Though I think you can still get away with playing them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm going to be real with you guys. I totally forgot that both Minsk and Boo, Minsk and Boo was on points and that Thoracle went down. I totally forgot about both of those, so that might be what I do later tonight or tomorrow. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of like, I mean, I threw together Golgari mid-range before the points changed, and the deck did fine. And I think that, like, with the recent up-pointings and both down-pointings, is like, you don't have to fight against the One Ring. You don't have to really fight against the Tameo deck as much, but, like, the deck I'm really kind of looking at right now, and it's not really because of the pointings, but more of new printings. I think the Welder decks are looking kind of interesting again. Just because it's like Welder isn't just like really a value piece anymore. It's kind of now it's a combo piece, and it's kind of pulling. You can do both things at once, and that took over a couple evenings for me. I was kind of obsessed with just brewing that deck.
For those that may be still unaware, which recent printings?
Oh yeah, Sewer Valence Cam, artifact for blue. When this artifact enters the battlefield, and when it leaves, I think it's tap or untap target creature, and then when you can pay blue and 3 and sacrifice it to draw 2 cards. So you play anything with Welder, like it's just infinite tap untap, so you always get to exchange it. But you play with anything like an artifact land or even like any mana producing artifact, you can just draw your deck that way.
Or like a synthesizer.
Yeah, a synthesizer. It wins with a ham sandwich. Like I think that's an interesting space to explore. I know that like initially I was like, oh, we need to do it with Painter combo, but I don't know if that's correct. I know Symbol just did well with the deck. yeah, no, there's a lot of cool stuff happening, a lot of decks that are coming about again. Because I don't know what decks. I mean, Ryan, I haven't really seen anything too new with the async I'm in this month, but or I mean, Kelvin, I don't know if you're in the async, but have you guys seen any new decks lately? Or
Not in an async, but sorry to interrupt, but I did play against an Affinity build that was running like the new Krang Mastermind, and holy crap, some of these new cards are good.
oh, is it Zoe's list?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
just yeah, 6 blue Affinity for artifact. When in TPs, if you have less than 4 cards, draw that many equal to the difference. Wild.
oh my god.
Yeah, I guess I haven't played a ton of Magic recently, so I haven't seen too many new decks. But it's really more variations on older decks that have been adjusted to not necessarily need to care about combo so much.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Like, I mean, I know in Golgari I cut like I was playing freaking Ashiok last time, and I cut that because I'm like I'm not dealing with this now.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Ryan, I don't think we got anything else to add. I mean, I think we went through everything. Do you got any last thoughts, Ryan, or do we want to start
No,
wrapping it up?
that's all I
Kelvin,
got.
Kelvin, do you got anything else for us?
We're gonna hit Kelvin with the Midwest goodbye.
Oh yeah.
No, that's it for me.
Okay, Kelvin. So the last thing I'm going to ask you is, where can the listeners find you, and or do you want to be found? Because if you don't want to, you don't have to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm I'm like moderately online when it comes to the Canlander Discords, so if anyone wants to, reach out if you have any questions, like feel free to message me or send me an email through Catlandex. And yeah, just yeah, hoping to be like as like one of the newer counselors, I try to be a little bit more reachable to if anyone has questions or thoughts.
Okay, awesome. Well, we will keep that in mind. But Calvin, thank you for joining us today and talking about Canland X. We really appreciate it. But other than that, I think that we're gonna let y'all go. If you have any questions, feel free to either reach out to us on Twitter, Blue Sky. You can hit us up on Discord, wherever you really want to. Um, but until next time.